I've been living in these apartment complexes in upstate New York since I was young, so I've seen many people come and go. The complex has a wooded area behind it that me and my friends used to explore and play in when we were young. We found some strange things: old voodoo looking dolls and clay pots and bowls. Strange stuff that didn't seem so strange when we were young. Next to the wooded area was a building that us kids that lived in the complexes went to get help with homework. The place has since closed down. There would be students from local colleges volunteering to come and help us out with our homework. One day, when getting off of the bus, one of the volunteers were waiting for me and a friend. She said she needed a translator for a woman that needed help. When we got to the office, the woman was in noticeable shock. She was an elderly lady who spoke Russian, my native language. She began explaining that she had seen a human-like face with a bear-like body come out of the woods when she was going for a walk and approach her. She said the creature was an animal she had never seen before and it looked demonic. When we explained this to the volunteers, I remember them brushing it off. Obviously, the woman sounded crazy. I never saw that woman again and almost forgot about the incident since it was so strange. Some years later, we had a family friend who was coming to my apartment to hang out with my mom. I was in my room but could still hear their conversation. She said she had been walking behind my apartment late last night with her dog when she saw something in the woods stalking her. She said it was all hairy and almost looked like a human but couldn't explain it. She said she was scared for her life, and when she made eye contact, the animal ran away. This was in the same area the woman from years before also saw the creature. The way she was explaining it was almost exactly like the woman from years before. I remember sleeping with my blinds closed for some time after. I'm planning on moving out of here in the next couple weeks. I still don't know what a reasonable explanation could be for both of these women that have never met, but saw the same creature years apart. There would be no benefit of making up such a story. I don't believe in ghosts or demons or anything like that, but maybe something else. I used to work in a strip mall out in a fairly rural area. Most people are recognizable even if you don't know them personally. People from out of the area frequently stop on their way to other towns, so it's not like there are never out-of-towners, just that they might be easy to spot. Like many places, we have a few homeless folks that hang around the shopping center, and they occasionally ask people for change or food. It can be a nuisance, but the folks that worked at the shops kind of kept an eye on them to help them out or to keep track of how they're doing. There's this one guy, let's call him Shane, that over the course of years has slowly gotten in worse and worse shape. He would be filthy and was clearly not doing well mentally, and was usually intoxicated. He always had several layers of clothing, and the pants that he wore on the outside of his other pants always sagged, making it hard for him to walk. He'd go missing for days and then just show up again. We'd wonder what happened to Shane and ask around a bit, and a few days later he'd reappear all over again. He was always so dirty. I always wished there was a way we could get him some help, but I didn't really know what to do. One day, I was out in a major city that is about 80 or so miles away from where I work. I happened to see a well-dressed, very well-groomed gentleman that looked exactly like Shane, but at that moment, I figured my eyes were deceiving me. This guy had an expensive-looking shoulder bag, a new iPhone, and an Apple Watch. We were both in line at a popular food truck, and it was usually a long wait to order and get your food. Most people just mind their business and scroll on their phones while waiting. This guy, on the other hand, is staring daggers at me. I keep avoiding looking that way, but I keep glancing to see if he's still there, and at the same time, I want to look at him because I'm so curious about how much he looks like Shane. I glance his way, and I have to stumble back because he's practically right up against me. He has such intense eyes. He sort of whispers to me, but really intensely, and tells me he knows where I'm from and what shop I work at. He gets closer and I can tell he smells good, and I can even smell his minty breath. I ask how he knows and he just smiles. I ask again and he smiles brighter, exposing a perfectly clean set of teeth, minus one tooth. I'm almost positive Shane is missing that same tooth. I edge away, feeling more than a little uncomfortable. His order gets called up, but they say his name is James. The next few days, I don't see Shane anywhere around the shopping center, and I ask around and no one had seen him for a few days. Someone says they hope he's okay, another person shrugs and says they wish they could do something to help him. The next day, here he is, filthy as ever, grimy teeth, dirty fingernails, and wearing all his layers. He sits on the curb outside my shop and asks people for change. I decide to venture out and confront him. I'm 100% sure it's him, but I don't understand how he could get so filthy and smelly in such a short amount of time. I ask him if he was in the city, and he looks at me through bloodshot eyes and mumbles that he'll kill me if I tell anyone. This takes me aback, and I look at him puzzled. He slurs again that he will kill me if I tell anyone that he's not actually homeless. He starts to get worked up, and I ended up calling the police because I didn't know at that point what he was capable of doing. He wandered off, and I haven't seen him since. So to Shane, let's not meet. This one time, I was taking my everyday nap in the afternoon in my room when I was still living with my parents, and I just had this urge of just waking up. I don't know if any of y'all have that feeling that your body is telling you it's time to wake up, so that's what I tried to do, but at that same time, my whole body froze and my hearing went away. And what scared me the most was that when I tried opening my eyes, I saw lots of glitchy flashings and what seemed to be like a VR headset around my head, but more futuristic, and I felt my body was sitting in a chair tied up. That's when my whole body started panicking, and when I was somewhat able to regain consciousness, I saw these people. I couldn't quite tell what they were. My whole vision was still blurry with all the glitchy flashing in my eyes. I was only able to see their silhouettes. They just rushed to me and they started saying, go to sleep, while trying to adjust that VR headset, or whatever it was, back in place. And that's when my hearing came back, but all I was able to hear was go to sleep repeatedly, and it started surrounding me as if they were all around me. When I tried gaining control of my body, it felt like it was in real life, that my body was already standing and that I had my hand extended as if I was Frankenstein waking up. And I just saw that last flash disappear from my eyes, like one of those old TVs when you turn them off and you see that last flash before it's a complete black screen. When I gained complete consciousness, I was gasping for air looking around my room, so confused as to what just happened, and I was still somewhat able to hear those words in my head as if it was telling me to forget what I saw. After that, I laid in bed scared, making myself believe it was just a dream. To this day, I have never told my parents because I know they were just gonna say I watched too many scary movies. I've only told this to a friend, and please don't get me wrong, I had plenty of sleep paralysis before, and scary ones too, but this just felt like it was much more than that. It felt as if I had another real body, and it was just something I felt I wasn't meant to see with my eyes. I hear people saying, what if we're not real, or what if we're just living in a simulation? But if they were able to see what I saw, then maybe they wouldn't take that as a joke. I believe in religion, so this nightmare or sleep paralysis, whatever you guys believe I had, just completely threw me off. Call me crazy, but I saw something that I really wish I didn't. I've always been good friends with one of my cousins, Cole, who's the same age as me. The two of us were not quite inseparable, but we always did get along very well together, and were often found together both in school and outside of it. When we were 12 and in the 6th grade, I was hanging out with Cole on a Friday afternoon around the later part of May, and we were psyched at the start of the weekend. When we were 12 and in the 6th grade, I was hanging out with Cole on a Friday afternoon around the later part of May, and we were psyched at the start of the weekend. We'd wound up at his house since he didn't live too far from me, and at one point my mom called to say that our grandpa was in the hospital. While the issue with our grandpa wasn't expected to be life-threatening, he was being kept at the hospital overnight for observation, and both my parents and Cole's were planning on staying with him and Grandma at the hospital, since my mom and her sister were the two of their siblings who lived close by. I was told that I was given the okay to stay at Cole's house for the night, with Cole's 15-year-old brother Hunter being in charge while our parents were out. This was fine by us. I got along well enough with Hunter, and he was never the bossy older brother/cousin that some of my other friends said they had to put up with. We ordered out for pizza and enjoyed goofing off as boys that age tend to do. At around 9 or so, there was a knock at the front door and Cole went to answer it. I was a bit curious as to who it could be at that time of the night, and so I watched from a ways back. At the door were two older guys. They said that they were with the city and that they were investigating reports about the water pressure supposedly being bad in the neighborhood. They asked Cole if his parents were home, and when Cole said they were unavailable at the moment, which we were told to say to strangers if our parents weren't home, the guys started asking a bunch of questions about how the water pressure was in the house and if they could come inside to check. Hunter came over at that point and politely told the guys that the water pressure was fine and perhaps they should move on and check on other homes in the neighborhood. The guys seemed reluctant to leave but turned and walked away after Hunter started closing the door. After the door was shut, we looked at each other and shrugged, but didn't think too much of it after that and went back to goofing off. Eventually, we decided to go to bed. Cole and Hunter shared a bedroom, and we all agreed that I'd sleep in there with them, rather than me hitting the sack on the couch or something like that, so that we could talk while we fall asleep. And Hunter grabbed a sleeping bag out of their camping supplies for me. When we got into their bedroom, they stripped down to their briefs, and I remember Cole had mentioned to me once a while back that they had started sleeping in just their underwear. Since I hadn't originally planned on staying the night, I hadn't brought anything with me from home as far as overnight stuff, but since I wasn't in the mood to sleep in my clothes, I stripped down to my briefs as well, though I felt a bit embarrassed, even though we were all guys there and I knew they wouldn't say anything or be judgmental. They climbed into their beds and I quickly crawled into the sleeping bag, and after talking for a while about random stuff, we eventually fell asleep. Early the next morning, I got up because I had to pee, and so I quietly got out of the sleeping bag and went and did my business in the bathroom. On the way back to the bedroom, I heard something in the family room, which was on the opposite end of the house from the bedrooms and particular bathroom I was using. I didn't pay too much attention to it at the time, thinking it must be either Cole or Hunter, until I got back into the bedroom and realized that both of them were still in there. Trying not to panic, I woke them and told them that I thought someone was in the house. They quietly followed me, and the moment we walked into the family room, we saw the two guys from the night before in there, and it was rather clear they were robbing the place. One of them started moving towards us as he pulled out a wicked-looking knife. The three of us promptly raced to the front door, somehow managed to get it unlocked and open, and we fled outside. As luck would have it, a cop was driving by at that particular moment. We quickly flagged him down and told him about the two guys in the house. The cop called for backup, and within a couple of minutes, several other cops were there, and they proceeded to enter the house, and after some searching, they caught the two guys. The cops figured out that the two guys must have entered from a window in the laundry room that had a broken latch, and had probably targeted that house because, while it wasn't empty, they'd probably realized that there were no adults there, and figured that if we discovered them, we could be more easily dealt with than adults. To add insult to injury, while we were waiting outside while the cops searched the house, both to get the two guys and make sure that there were no one else with them, some of the neighbors came out to see what the commotion was about, and this included some kids who went to the same school as Cole and I, including a few who were in our 6th grade class with us. It was during that time that the three of us realized that we never had the chance to get dressed, so just like in the stereotypical nightmare, we had to stand outside in full view of everyone in just our briefs for what seemed like forever before being allowed back inside. When we went back to school on Monday, Cole and I had to put up with more than a bit of snickering, stares, and ribbing for the next few weeks until school ended for the summer.